We live, we're live, we're live. What's running in the AH? Nothing much happening. We have alt. Alt is up 14% in the AH. NTNX. NTNX is up 8%. The big winner today, DPW. DPW. We have NTNX up 8% in the AH. Nothing much happening in the AH right about now. I tweeted DPH early. DPH was up about 70% when I made my alert. DPH closed up a whopping 238%. 238% DPW. FTEK. FTEK closed up 122%. A lot of triple-digit runners today. Let's see what the overall market. The Dow Jones closed up 1.12% today at 29,591. Dow 30,000 looms large. The NASDAQ closed up 0.22% at 11,880. All right. Please like the live. Please like the live.
And have no assets aside from their intellectual property. Chapter 3. The 100 Pip Trader. Rob Booker. Even though Rob Booker is a former lawyer turned full-time trader, if you asked him to describe his job, he would tell you that he is a backtester first and a trader second. In less than 5 years, he has gone from trading a $2,500 account to becoming a client of a major interbank provider which requires a sizable account. Rob's style of trading is defensive, and he focuses on preservation of capital. His number one rule of trading is, if I can't prove that a system works from my testing, I'm trading it with real money. A fan of the casual attire lifestyle, his humorous laid-back approach has built him a huge following. He is one of the funniest traders that we know, as well as one of the most humble. He has taught over 1,000 traders how to trade, and all of them call him their friend.
Yes, I'm still on
as he strives to maintain a lifetime relationship with each one of them. From office in Wheeling, West Virginia, Rob took a few hours to talk to us about his approach to market and to share some of his tricks of the trade.
They're still going.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background in the financial markets? Were you exposed to the concept of finance as a kid, or was it much later? Answer. If I had any experience in anything related to stocks or investments when I was young, it was probably somewhat negative. It's not that I was discouraged from being involved in the markets, but I was always encouraged to think of what I would call more traditional occupations, law or medicine. I don't know enough math to save my life, and I always heard that to work in the markets I would need to have a strong math background. So Wall Street wouldn't have been much of an option in my mind anyway. Honestly, I was never encouraged to think about working in the markets, so I guess you wouldn't call it discouragement, but it never arose as an option, as a career, or even as a hobby. And it wasn't even something I was remotely interested in. The earliest that I can remember being interested in investing at all was when I took a course in high school as a freshman, and it was a business course. We were expected to buy stocks at the beginning of the semester with a play account, and then track the quotes in the newspaper for the semester and see how it turned out. Did that whet your appetite in the financial markets enough to keep you interested? No, I think I took the class and forgot about it, but I really enjoyed taking the class. I remember I bought Pioneer stock. It was the company that made electronics, and I really wanted a Pioneer stereo with a CD player at that time. So I decided that I would pick a stock based on something that I liked, and I am fairly certain I came in last. So much for investing in something just because I liked it, and not because it had true upside potential. Yet during that semester of high school, I was entranced by the thought that you could actually buy a piece of a company or invest in something, and then basically play the game of waiting to see if you had made the right decision. I was seriously interested in it
is
at
a
the
long-term
time,
play.
and then I just forgot about it. In fact, I completely forgot
Yes,
about
Mike.
it until much
Meso
later
is a
on.
long-term hold.
That's very interesting, because not everyone who was successful at trading actually majored in anything remotely related to it in college. Yes, exactly.
But if you're making money, it
And
can't
I
hurt
never
to sell
actually
some.
took any economics classes in college at all. Big, scary class at BYU, Brigham Young University, when I was an undergraduate was Economics 101, and it seemed so daunting from all the horror stories I heard about it. So, although I was interested in business, and by that time I was, once again, interested in the markets, I was just too fearful at the time to really take the plunge, which I think would have assisted me later on in my trading career. So then you went on to study law? That is correct. As soon as I graduated from BYU with a degree in Italian, my wife and I moved to San Francisco, where I started law school. Was that because of parental pressure? Mostly, yes. I think it's unfair to blame the decision on my parents, but in my mind, I really did enroll in law school because I believed, from my upbringing, that it was the safe route. That's exactly the reason why I went. I think I was strongly encouraged by my parents to pursue a traditional occupation that would allow or enable me to support my family, and any pressure I felt from my parents was positive. They were excited for me to go to law school and told me that they believed I would do very well. They were probably more excited than I was about law school.
Meso closed up
It was never forced on me, and I sort of followed that path because I had come to the conclusion that that's what I wanted to do, and I had a vision of a legal career that was quite different than what's practically possible as an attorney. It did not take long for me in law school to realize that I would have no interest in practicing law. What kind of law were you studying? Well, in law school, it's just so general that at the beginning you don't get a lot of chances to specialize in anything. So I took courses ranging from criminal to constitutional to business law.
So
when I was in law school,
they're still
I took
going.
a summer job in an investment bank in San Francisco.
Hold on
and
until
my
the
wife
trend
worked for a
changes.
hedge fund. The exposure to these
When the
jobs
trend changes,
started
then you
me
could
thinking
sell.
again about a career markets. So I started picking courses in transactional law or corporate law, and found that I was, once again, fascinated by the idea of trading, and realized that I had caught the bug a long time ago and I just couldn't shake it, and I kept coming back to the same thing. One day, while working at the investment bank, I met a trader. Later on that same day, someone told me that the trader I'd met made $600,000 the year before. That seemed to me to be way more money than I could make practicing law. Then I was told a trader would probably make over $1 million in the current year. I started wondering what the heck I was doing in law school. That's really interesting that you took an internship at an investment bank, because people who study law usually take internships in some of the big law firms. What made you take it? That's a good question. It's very kind of you to even ask that question, that you would assume that a big law firm would have had any interest in me, which they did not. I made the decision to work at an investment bank, alternative available to me. Although I was fortunate to get into a good law school, my grades were absolutely terrible. I was uninterested in a legal career from nearly the very beginning, and my grades seriously reflected that lack of interest. So I took a job where I could get one, and the place I could get a job was as a lowly staff assistant type position at Montgomery Securities in San Francisco, and I absolutely loved the environment. I was actually working at Montgomery Securities on the day they helped take Netscape public. Everybody in the office, especially in the operations department, was fascinated by the idea that this company with no revenues could be taken public. I remember people telling me that this new company was doomed to failure and there was no way it could ever survive. Well, we know now that the founders of the company were made very rich and that the company was sold to AOL in 1998 for $4 billion. The day Netscape went public, we watched as the stock kept going up and everybody made predictions as to how far back down it would go, but it really never did go down for as long as I was there. And I think that was one of my formative experiences where I realized that the markets were an amazing vehicle for wealth creation, and
you listened to the ebook?
Wealthy very quickly. Maybe not a great lesson, but it certainly was one of the things that attracted me to the markets once again, and I never lost interest for longer than a day after that. Did you ever finish your law degree, or did you switch careers before that? I did finish law school. There are very few regrets in my life, but one of those would be that I did not take a job as a trading assistant at Montgomery Securities, but rather continued my legal studies and went all the way through and finished law school. When did you decide to switch careers? Once again, my not-so-fantastic grades in law school threw me an opportunity to look elsewhere. I had job offers after law school to work in law firms, and what I realized at that point was that it just simply wasn't going to work for me. So I attempted to enroll in a PhD program on the East Coast. My wife and I moved to the East Coast, and when I decided that the PhD program wasn't for me, I actually worked at several jobs, whatever I could do to earn money and support my family, anything to avoid law. I was happier making 1/3 the amount of money in other jobs. Once again, the market came back up, and within just a couple of years, I had been introduced to a private currency trader in Southern California. That's when I really sort of realized that I didn't need to work in an investment bank to be involved in the markets. I didn't need to have a business degree. I didn't need to have a lot of special connections. What I really needed was a good internet connection and some information on how to get started, and the perseverance to make it through the bad times, the hard lessons that we all seem to go through. So that was the beginning of my currency trading career. It seems like your wife at the time was extremely supportive, or at least very flexible to be moving around with you. Well, she's never been the type of person who would encourage me to do something that wouldn't make me happy, and money was never our first concern as a married couple. The first concern was quality of life and whether we're doing things with our time on Earth that allows us to spend time together and allows us to feel comfortable and good about what we're doing. As long as I was moving forward in those plans, money wasn't going to be a problem.
No, the trend.
Because of this, I'm very familiar with the dilemma that
wait till the stock started to trend down, then you can get out.
Job and try to trade at the same time. We were deeply in debt after law school. I defaulted on student loans to pursue currency trading as a career. We experienced enormous financial pressures, including the inability to pay our rent or make our car payment or really have enough money for basic essentials. But what I did, that was the direction that we were going to go, and once I made that decision, I wasn't going to give up. I didn't have any special training or a trading account funded by parents. This was something that we had to do from scratch. So you started immediately in FX, in Forex, or did you first dabble in futures or stocks or something else? I've never made an equity trade in my life, except in 9th grade when I bought Pioneer stock and it went down at least 10 points by the end of the semester.
Jordan Bentley in the building.
Tell us about this trader from Southern California. How did he get you involved in the markets? I was introduced to the trader in Southern California through a friend of mine who had been very successful in business. My friend said, you know, if you're interested in trading, you should talk to this guy who's trading my money. At the time, my friend said that he loaned this currency trader in Southern California approximately $1, and this currency trader was paying my friend between 6 and 8% per month in interest. I thought, well, here's something. This trader is amazing. He must be throwing off enough gains to produce that 6% in interest monthly and still have enough profit left over. In fact, my friend at the time had received back the entire amount of his principal over the course of about 12 months and now was receiving basically in payments. So I thought, if somebody is so successful at currency trading that they can do that type of thing, that they can borrow money at ridiculous interest rates.
Jordan, you lost money on HRP?
One thing led to another, and this currency trader introduced me to his methodologies, which seemed too good to be true. And you know what they say about that. We discovered later on was that he was raising money and making payments to the people who had given him money in the first place by raising more money on the side. Eventually, that game caught up with him. By the time I found out that he wasn't for real, I had already sort of lost my first account and had decided that I could figure it out myself if I spent the time necessary to do so. It must have been pretty scary to be in such financial strain and then not to trade well when you first started. How did you find the confidence to keep on doing it? I wasn't very good at practicing
HPR closed down
16% or doing much of anything else today. That I first started in life, and I always approached things from that perspective. I mean, on the first day that I drove a car when I was 15 years old, I wasn't very good at driving, but over the course of time, I became comfortable and successful at driving, and that didn't happen overnight. I knew there were going to be some losses, and so the pressure came for the reasons that you feel financial pressure. Meaning, if you get an eviction notice or if you can't make your car payment, you naturally feel pressure. But I don't think I felt pressure to figure out trading immediately. I think I'd met enough traders in San Francisco and spoken to enough people who helped me realize that this was not going to be any different than playing sports or having a first job or learning to drive. There was going to be a learning period during which I felt uncomfortable, made a lot of mistakes, and had to learn for myself some of the things that you simply can't learn by reading a book or listening to someone else, as much as they try to help you. Did you make a lot of mistakes in the beginning? Oh, certainly, yeah. Do you have a page
FTEK is doing good.
I made every mistake that you can possibly think of.
I recommended FTEK on November the 11th at $1.22.
Too many trades. 2, I traded with lot sizes that were way too big. I was risking 5 to 10% of my account on each trade when I should have been risking less than 1%. 3, I traded multiple systems at the same time. 4, I traded any currency pair that I liked. 5, I traded at all times of the day. 6, I traded long-term and short-term. 7, I read way too many books about systems and far too few books about discipline. Did you take any classes? No. I did read a lot of books, but I never took any classes. I think the best book I read at the early stages was Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, which most people know to be the not-so-secret biography of Jesse Livermore.
Apple
I also
and
found
Rocket.
a lot of wisdom in biographies of successful people, including John Rockefeller, Gandhi, George Washington, and other founding fathers. In many cases, I found more trading wisdom in the biographies than in the trading books.
RKT was a disappointment.
How long
I thought
did
it would
take you
be
to get it right?
over $30 by now.
11 months. During that time, I tested my brains out. I built my own trading systems.
Might be a good buying
tested them
opportunity here
endlessly.
for
I tested
RKT.
for hours every day. I traded with a demo account and a small live account. Did you at any point feel
See
like
what
giving
Apple
up?
is doing.
Probably every day. I probably felt that way on a regular basis at the beginning, and some of it was also working at the time. I would develop websites. I took a job selling T1 lines or internet service at the very infancy of the internet. I took a job as financial recruiter, a headhunter. The one thing that I would not consider doing was taking a job working in a law firm. And that was simply because I didn't want to get sucked into the lifestyle and go down a path that I felt really uncomfortable with for the long term. So I did a lot of things on the side and as much as I could just to make sure
Apple
we could
looking
stay
kind of
afloat
weak.
during the time that I tried to learn how to trade. So you worked full-time while you were trading? Or was it
Apple
more
is
like
looking
part-time?
weak right about now.
I'm absolutely positive that I worked full-time hours, and some of those hours were the 9-to-5 type, while some were side projects where I did consulting work like
Flash
write a
Melody in the
contract or
building.
help with a website. I looked for whatever work I could find
Jag
that I would
X.
be able to do in the middle of the night, ideally.
All right, I'm going to write
So
that
how did
down.
you manage
Jag
to
X.
trade while working full-time? I just didn't get a lot of sleep. The only answer I can come up with, looking back on it now, is that I woke up at
Shoot
2
me an
or
email
3
at
o'clock in the morning,
DaveJamaica8
and I would watch the
at
London or European
AOL.
sessions. The reason
Let
I
me
did that
research
was because I
Jax
had
for
been
you.
first introduced to currency trading from someone who was taking trades in the middle of the night and trading during those sessions. So that's the session that I was drawn to. And so I would get up really early,
Please
and then
like
in
the
the morning
live.
I would be ready to work or do whatever else it was that I was doing to earn actual money. And then I would come home.
I
and
appreciate
I
you,
would try to
Flash, for
sleep and
watching my
spend time with
videos.
my wife and get up early again. So I literally made it work by just getting very little sleep.
So just shoot me an email at
Do you think the key
DaveJamaica8
was that you had
at
to make
AOL.
this work? Yes, I made a decision one time, like I do with most things. I made a decision that I was going to make it work. It was clear to me that other people could trade for a living, and if it was possible for other people to do it, then I could persevere long enough to figure it out. I knew it might take me longer than someone else, but I wasn't in competition with someone to do it faster. I knew that I wouldn't have a large account like someone else might have, but I wasn't in competition to have a certain size account.
Okay, Mike, I
was just
turned
trying
it
to
down.
figure it out so I could be
So shoot me an
consistent.
email at
I
DaveJamaica8
also had
at
a very good friend who
AOL.com
was a financial planner who told me that
for
the secret
your
was
start.
to grind out regular
Any start you
profits
want to
on a regular
research.
basis. The goal wasn't to hit the jackpot or pull the slot machine.
So
or
I'm
win
going
the
to check
lottery.
out Jag
The goal
X.
was to consistently grind out profits week after week. And if I could be
I already
profitable
told
each
you
week, the
SNOA
amounts that
still
I
a go.
made wouldn't matter, as it would prove that I was able
So
to
is
keep what I had earned.
MESO.
And I think I just decided that was the main focus. If
Those
it was
two are
just
still looking
$50
strong.
per week or even $25 per week, at the beginning the amounts were irrelevant, and really figuring it out was more relevant.
FTEK was a
Later
monster
on,
today.
I figured I could find more money to trade with if I had to. I can't emphasize this enough. Big lesson for me here was that I didn't have to make $1,000 per day or even per month. I just needed to make
Goddamn
something
Damien in the
and not
building.
give back. I learned
Welcome,
that
welcome.
if I took care of my trading capital, the rest
Please
would
like the
take care of
live.
itself. How much did you start trading with? 2005. It was partially mine and partially an investment that a good friend made in me. In the first few days of trading, I made 10% in the account. I should have closed the trading software down and not opened it again for a month. What happened? I just remember it exactly. The account went from $2,500 to about $2,752 and some change. And I had
Lyrics
a
Media, you
10%
change your
gain in
name?
the account,
Why?
And I should have shut it off and walked away for at least
Lyrics
a week.
Media in the
I was
building.
positively euphoric. I was the Warren Buffett of currency
How's your
trading.
channel doing?
I remember I had heard these stories about guys returning 6 to 8% a month or more, and I figured I could just continue to do something like that. But I didn't stop. 2 weeks later, I took a trade, placed no stop loss, and 72 hours later, I had lost 90% of my capital. I remember drawing it down to the point where it was at $2,500 and saying to myself, maybe I can get out at break even and it will be like the bad trade never happened. Then it was down 2,000 and then it was 1,500. And by the time it got down to that level, I just thought, it can't get any worse. So I might as well just leave it open. And of course, it got worse. So what do you do differently now? I try my hardest not to lose money. That's my first concern. I know this sounds heretical, but making the money.
Goddamn, Damien, I appreciate you.
When I first started trading, I was in a
I'm
very
trying
bad
my
spot
best.
financially. A close
Gotta
friend
keep
and very
going, keep
successful
growing.
business took me aside, looked me in the eye,
Can't
and
stop
said,
now.
Rob, you've convinced yourself that making money is difficult.
Please support the channel by watching my
Making
playlist.
money is easy. Keeping it is difficult. He wasn't speaking about trading.
Got
but
tons
he
of
could have been,
ebooks on
and he
there.
was right. I have found that it's not terribly difficult to develop a profitable trading system. What requires real grit is the ability to hold on to acceptable risk. So the name of the game for me has been to not lose money first and then just grind out profits week after week as the second goal.
Please check out Goddamn Damien's channel.
You needed to trade defensively.
A lot of nice music on there.
Trade that I really started practicing this. After losing that $2,500, I spent 11 months.
You're still doing the same content, right, Damien?
Reading not just about trading systems or methodologies. I tried to learn and adopt the principles that would guide me from a mental standpoint.
Describe your channel in the chat.
I was determined to never fall into a trance on a losing trade, what I call possum trading, where you sort of fall asleep and act like if you don't watch it, it will all get better. I promised that I'd let that happen again. That was the big goal. And it took 11 months, not just to figure out entries and exits, but really get to the point where I could trade on a practice account consistently enough that I wasn't gambling with the account any longer. And so the central goal became to never lose.
Oh, you're doing comedy now?
If I could keep my capital.
I'm gonna go over there when I'm done.
Trading is a game of survivability.
Because I need to get a good laugh.
What was the process like in terms of teaching yourself? Did you teach yourself basic chart reading or did you learn about fundamentals first? I started exclusively with technical analysis. Economics intimidated me, so I at first avoided fundamental analysis. Instead of reading about economics, I took a copy of Alexander Elder's Trading for a Living, and I read about moving averages. During that 11 months, I literally sat at the charts and backtested.
Might be no donations accepted.
With moving averages. At the end of 11 months, I actually remember somebody asking me if I had chosen one of my moving averages as the 62 moving average.
I'll be happy to accept donations.
And I asked
if you're talking about.
I didn't understand what the word fib meant. I hadn't really done much other analysis except for my own testing and experimentation. With
you could use my email.
I would plot moving averages on the charts
for PayPal or Zelle.
One candle at a time.
Dave Jamaica 8 at AOL.
Different currency pairs.
I really appreciate any donation.
An enormous amount of research of my own in how
I've been non-stop since March. Every day I do a video.
From a given type of trade. I wanted
twice
to
a day.
open a trade and answer the questions. What could I expect to lose?
Twice a day.
What could I expect to win? And when those win-loss ratios became acceptable and I could trade the strategy consistently week after week after week profitably, then I knew I was defending.
I'm going to stop this a second. I gotta do something real quick.
account. I knew that I was consistently grinding out some profits week after week and trading.
Thanks for all the
with a
support.
system that might not have been
The likes
certainly produced gains
is the
in
fuel that
ways.
drives me. The likes and the
Essentially,
comments.
backtested is to go back into the price charts and look for examples of what you thought was going to happen, right? Yes. You didn't use some sort of programming language to mechanically backtest? Right. That's the other part about it. At a number of levels, I was really too uneducated or stupid to know at the time that you could even program anything like that. I wasn't even aware that there was some type of programming language or charting platform that would allow me to backtest that stuff automatically or mechanically. And now I'm happy I didn't have any of those tools because I gained a lot by watching the charts and not doing it in such a mechanical way. I became familiar with the way that price moved on the chart for the British pound US dollar.
Email me at DaveTheMaker8 for stock research. You got to give me some time though.
Looking at the price move up and down in regular, repeatable patterns, I seared into my memory the trends, the ranges, and just a few currency pairs which became as familiar as friends. Do you think that's still the way you primarily backtest at the moment? Because we're sure there are a lot of new traders who find things like easy language very, very daunting in the beginning. I say this to everyone now, and I've been saying it most recently in the following terms. I have a career as a backtester. Then on the side, I have a part-time job, and that's being a trader. So yeah, I still engage in that process of testing every day. In fact, before we had the phone call today, I've been working with another set of moving averages on another time frame chart together with people who have come out of a backtesting fiesta, as I like to call it. My entire office is organized so that groups of people can enthusiastically engage in the process of testing together. So no one in the office knows easy language or any other programming language? I actually now know easy language well enough to program most what I do. And additionally, I work with at least 2 different programmers if I needed to help optimize mechanical systems if I chose to do so. But it's very seldom that I'll optimize something or program it until I actually have already proven that it works just the way it is. So I might program it or optimize it in order to facilitate the process of sounding off alarms or alerting me to the opportunities. But I still don't engage in any type of mechanical trading whatsoever.
Don't forget, most of my plays are short-term hold,
The entries and the exits.
in and out.
So you backtest more for reference and to create a
Unless
foundation.
I say otherwise.
Yes, absolutely. It's a scientific process. Hypothesis.
Also watch the
ideas for a
PDT
trading
rule.
system, then experimentation, then results.
Do not
and so
overtrade.
forth. If I can't verify it, I won't trade it. If you and I plotted a random indicator on price charts, on any time frame, on any currency pair, with at least 5,000 to 10,000 bars of data, and locked ourselves in a room for 6
So the
months,
big winner today,
build a system,
DPW. I tweeted this one early.
verification and experimentation for me. I have no actual preference.
Follow me
for
on
type of
Twitter at
methodology,
WPT.
whether it be fundamental analysis, price action analysis, order flow analysis, support and resistance trading, or astrology. As long as it can be verified historically, I'll take that preponderance of evidence and say at least it shows a statistical advantage historically. And although past results are not indicative of future performance exactly, they certainly provide a lot of evidence to support some methodology that I'm considering. And if we have any statistical basis for what we're trading, then we're just taking the random walk down Wall Street, as they say.
Let me see what JagX did today. Oh, they closed up
How far back do you
2.77% today.
Well, when I did short-term trading,
At
which is
21
anytime
cents.
for 1 hour, I generally
Is this a
don't go back
OTC stock?
further than the advent of the euro.
No.
Meaning, I'm trying to take advantage of a current market. I want to actually experiment with the market in a similar way back then as it is to now. So I do not want to experiment with the 15-minute charts in a time where the Deutschmark and the Italian lira and the Spanish pesetas were all basically floating.
So we have ALT up 14% in
2000 to 2001.
nothing going on in the AH last time I checked. NTNX, they're up 8%.
If I go back too far, I'm going to go back to a time when currency trading was all done with the good old boys club, and they were all using rotary phones. It feels uncomfortable to me to go back any further than that. Yes, the market was traded very differently back then. Exactly. Traders were writing down their orders, and the British pound US dollar currency pair would have 1-hour candles that were 100 pips large each time.
I don't trade currency, but the concept is the same. Trading is trading, whether you're trading marbles or houses.
In the beginning, we talked about how you focus primarily on technical analysis. However, over the past years, have you incorporated any aspect of news in your trading? On a weekly basis, I actually draft what I call crib sheets or cheat sheets about economic fundamentals. And I'll take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and I'll write out major economic statistics from around the world. I accumulate that information using free resources on the internet or paid resources like Bloomberg, and I keep a regular accounting of statistics from all over the world. Then I laminate those cheat sheets and I actually take them with me into the shower in the morning. And I'll just put them against the wall, and because they're laminated, they stick against the wall, and I just memorize and track economic statistics from around the world. So that when I'm taking longer term trades, for instance, trades that are going to last from a day to as much as 1, 2, or 3 weeks, I understand the underlying economic fundamentals. For instance, I might understand that inflation and wage increases are still really strong in Australia, which might lead the Australian Central Bank to either increase or keep their high base interest rate. I might understand that at the same time, Japan has an economy that's finally coming out of a deflationary period, and that interest rates are possibly going to rise over the next 18 months. An economy that is finally coming out of a deflationary period, and that interest rates are possibly going to rise over the next 18 months. I might understand simultaneously that economic data coming out from the US shows that the Federal Reserve is likely to pause on interest rates and then go into a cycle of loosening monetary policy. If I understand those background economic fundamentals, it gives me a little bit more information on why I'm taking the longer term trades that I'm picking. I generally never take a longer term trade or a shorter term trade solely based on any type of economic fundamentals, meaning it won't be the reason I picked the trade, but it could factor into how long I stay in the trade. It could factor into feel more confident, less confident in a trade. Oil is a perfect example. I track oil, and I watch the Canadian dollar and its response to oil prices. So I may use fundamental analysis as part of the picture, but I never exclusively use fundamental analysis to make a decision about a trade. Would you ever use fundamental analysis as a reason to not get into the trade? I use it to some degree. For example, I might not short the British pound against the Japanese yen for any extended length of time, knowing that an interest rate differential is going to create some sort of significant transaction cost.
Heard the great in the building.
Japanese yen trade for anything longer
Welcome.
than a few days. So I might be more reluctant to hold something longer, and I might be reluctant to even initiate that type of a position in the first place.
What's a good word?
Things about fundamentals. Although I have in the past made short-term trades immediately following major economic events, such as the non-farm payrolls report, it has been quite some time now since I have done it. I think that it is absolutely far more dangerous than it ever used to be. Far easier to lose a significant amount of money, and it has become, on the retail investing side, something of a scheme or a trick that people want to teach other people to try and do that becomes a really, really quick way to lose a lot of money. It's sort of a get-rich-quick lottery slot machine type mentality. So I will rarely participate in any short-term moves around economic events. I'll usually let the market settle down, and I'll just buy or sell depending upon how it fits into the bigger picture. It's interesting that you talk about interest rates or carry. Do you ever factor it into your shorter-term trades or just longer-term ones? Into my longer-term trader? Absolutely. My good friend and trading partner, Maxwell Fox, and I did a long-term interest rate study that tracked the interest rates, the monthly average or the monthly base rate for the Bank of England.
If you'd like to support the channel, please watch my playlist.
The Bank of Japan, the U.S. Federal Reserve.
This is a free
and we
channel.
Rate differentials from the early 70s. Can't remember the exact year, but it was 1974 or 1976, all the way through to the present. And then we tracked the average monthly spot price for each of the currency pairs that would be affected individually. What we generally found was that spot prices lag interest rate movement quite a bit. For example, in August 1990, differential between the pound and the yen interest rate peaked at about 10.5%, meaning that the Bank of England has an astoundingly higher interest rate than the Bank of Japan. I believe the Bank of England had a base rate at 15%, and the Bank of Japan had a base rate of something like 4%. And what we found was even after that differential started to come down to 10%, the spot price continued to rise, meaning it took a while for those carry trades to actually unwind. It didn't turn on a dime. Spot prices actually took a while to catch up. So, returning to your question, in my longer-term trading analysis, I might take into account the fact that although interest differentials are converging or diverging, it takes the spot price a while to catch up with some of that interest rate movement. But it does, in fact, historically tend to catch up with the interest rate differential. So if there's any primary long-term fundamental tool that I use in forecasting currency movements, it's definitely interest rate differentials from nation to nation. How many hours a day do you spend trading? 3 to 6 hours per day, which includes the planning of trades and analysis and so forth. The rest of the time I write, answer email, and spend time with my family or my other community responsibilities. What is your typical day like? If you look at my day from a 24-hour perspective, it goes something like this. I go into the office at about 7 a.m. Eastern Time, and I trade the short-term New York session if a setup comes along and if I haven't already reached my profit goal for the week. I answer emails and keep an eye on long-term charts at the same time. I also chat on instant messaging with someone with the short-term trading, and I move on.
Marlon Newbie.
From my website.
It's been a long time, Marlon.
In the afternoon, I try as often as possible to also go.
How is the house coming along?
My family, wrestle with my son, or play with my baby daughter, and help out around the house. In the evenings, I do more long-term analysis, read with my wife and kids, help put the kids to bed, and then do more long-term analysis. I don't often get up in the middle of the night.
I know you're a real. I know you're a real estate guy.
That is a perfect time.
Thanks for tuning in.
Longer-term trading. What is your goal for the week?
What's up with all the rain?
Target in my trading account. A goal.
What's up with all the rain?
Profit or pips that I want to make per week.
I'm having mold issues.
I find that thinking too much about a certain dollar amount or an item that I want to buy takes my focus off.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that the house is going great. Going great. Good job. Good job.
Dangerously upon what I want the market to be. I've pretty much.
I think it rained for like 2 months straight.
50 to 100 pip a week trader, meaning I understand the limits of my trading capacity, and over 50 to 100 points of profit.
I appreciate you checking out the page. I appreciate you, Mark.
A little bit less disciplined and a little bit more euphoric, to put it mildly. So I have not generally done a lot to increase that PIP target over time.
Thanks
even
for all
though
your
systems
support.
that I build might produce bigger gains. This is actually something that I strongly believe in.
Please
There are
the
things
live.
that I haven't mentioned so far that I feel are really important. And one of them is that there is a misconception that in order to be
This big C is hindering me from travels.
one has to earn a certain dollar amount per week or per month.
Messed up my whole year. I had a lot of travel plans this year.
To beginning traders is to never be concerned with comparing your own PIP results or percentage results or dollar results to anyone
Seems like
else
it's gonna get
except
worse
yourself.
before it gets better.
I'm not in competition to make more money than Joe Trader. I'm in competition to make sure that I make enough money to support my family. So I've been to expos and conferences and I've spoken around the world, and traders who are new to trading will say, well, Rob, how many pips did you make last year or this month? And I'll discuss it with them.
Yes, indeed, Marlon. You can't stop. You got to keep going, keep going.
Or so-and-so is making. And I will tell them all the
Trust
time,
me, I had a lot of roadblocks.
aware that Joe Trader was
I
trying
just
to
got
pay my
bust
bills.
through them.
I wasn't
Can't
aware
stop.
that I was under some demand to compete with anyone else. That's really important for me and has been a real benefit to me in the long run.
I hate
Just
failure.
remember that I'm not in competition with anybody else for a certain type of gain. So
I got to get things done by any means
the answer
necessary.
is I have not generally increased that goal. And when I have increased that PIP goal, I found that I become somewhat overconfident after a series of wins or too despondent after a series
Mike,
of losses.
FTEK.
What I do
When you're hot, you're hot. I couldn't believe that thing jumped 100% today.
Then the next week after,
FTEK.
started all over again.
It was my play a few weeks ago
Set the PIP count to 0.
at $1.
If I have a bad week, the next week when I start back up, it's a blank slate.
I'm telling you, this EV sector is on fire.
Back what I lost the week before. I just have to produce what I know statistically I can produce, not what I have to produce in order to make.
November the 11th, it was DAVESPLay FTEK. Go back to my November 11th video.
Of whatever comes my way during the week to reach that goal.
It was trading at about $1.
That's a good point.
November 11th.
Increase your positions the next week to cover losses.
Let me see where it is right now. FTEK.
No, and that's always been troublesome for me. And when I have done that, it's certainly where I've gotten into the deepest pit, which is when I've had a really good week and I thought the market's just going to shower me with sweet profit forevermore, and I will never see another.
Marlon, I know.
Well,
this big C.
That's right after the market's ranging in exactly the way I
slowed
like,
everything down.
and then it's going to break out into a trend.
Adla in the building, Wagwan. You got in at solo 625. Congrats. Hey, Mike, FTEK is up 33% in the AH. FTEK.
I either stop trading or reduce the size of the trades so far that I can't possibly.
Mike, I sell, I go in and out.
The overarching goal for me is to
I get out of stock, then I'll get back in.
After that is make money every week and build the account.
FTEK is a monster.
Amazing financial discovery.
FTEK is at 375 right now.
Of compounded gains. I tell this to every new trader. If you can build your account bit by bit, you will realize spectacular profits over the long run. Even if
FTEK is an earnings winner, so that's a long-term hold.
Emphasizing this point, but it has been important for me to remember: make money as a trader means that I grind out.
I gave away this one at $1 when they just came up with earnings, November the 11th.
Not on the big score or a huge lottery-type payoff.
FTEK.
Let's talk a little bit about your trading tactics. Do you typically make
Adley, up.
Trade, or do you go all into the position?
Welcome to the live. Please like the live. Please like. I appreciate you.
Trade based on the 15-minute chart in the New York session, which I call a New York session box trade. I'm all in on the first trade and all out at the exit point, meaning that it's a point A to point B trade. It's not based on a news event.
Marlon, you just did the electricity downstairs so you could move in.
Analysis necessarily.
You have light, you have water, you're good.
That triggers an entry and triggers an exit that is very well defined, and I'm all in from the start. On my long-term trading, I am much more likely to initiate a position
if you really want to go down, you could travel.
50% of my total available position size for that trade, and then add to the position.
They're going to put a tracking device on your phone, but there's ways around that. You didn't hear that from me.
Positions or cost average. That has never worked for me personally. What time frame charts do you look at? My favorite time frame chart is the 1 hour chart. That's where it all happens for me. In the past, I've extensively used the 15-minute chart and others, but right now my main focus is on the 1 hour. I often take positions on the 1 hour chart and hold them.
Boom, bam, might be. No problem. I got you. FTEK is a monster. I got you. FTEK is a monster.
I can just let the trade go without my attention. Like most traders, I check on my trades regularly.
You got the septic system in place. You're good to go.
But I generally try my best.
Can't travel without money? Well, that's for sure.
Do you range trade more in the short term and
use your credit card? Just make sure you pay it back.
Well, it is exactly the opposite. Historically, I look for breakouts into trends on the short-term charts. And in the long term,
Semester in the building. This is not my first live. I try to do a live once a week.
When I first started trading, I would have a whole basket of positions open at the same time.
All of the real estate guys are coming online now.
Based on a similar position on British pound, US dollar, and then simultaneously take a position, for instance, in the euro Canadian dollar. So I wouldn't necessarily be trading the same currency pair.
Marlon, you need a local account.
The same fundamental principles.
You got to set up a local account. So when you go down, even if you go down with $0, you just use the money that's down there. Please like the live.
It is far more likely that I would actually trade one currency pair that I felt most comfortable with, and maybe on occasion initiate a total of 2 or 3 separate positions at any given time.
Shout out to Cleggy
So basically a
for all the support, all the encouragement.
At any time? Right. Do you ever average down? I am not a proponent of adding to a losing position. And recently, I took a 6% loss.
Oh, shucks, that sucks.
Because I averaged down against my own rules and then could not, per my money management guidelines, add enough later on.
Yeah, so that big C killed a lot of service. A lot of service in business.
Boom. The trade turned just a bit later.
Hopefully things
break my rules, I get burned. I prefer instead to add to winning positions. And those have been my big winners. When I'm on the way to a profit target that I have tested to be better than 80% accurate, there are stages along the way where it makes sense for me to capitalize on the good decision.
But people got to eat, Marlon. You got to find a way out of get the food to them or something.
To the full extent, the possible profit, because my equity is growing as the trade is profitable.
People got to eat, so
still keep my risk low. I like to use the analogy of a relationship. If you are in a terrible relationship and you can see that it's not working out the way that you want it to, you should end the relationship. We've all been in relationships we should have ended more quickly. Trading is the same. If I'm in a position that is not doing
2022, you skipped 2021. Yeah, I was supposed to go on a cruise this year.
I get out and move on.
First, they say they're gonna postpone it to next year. Now I'm getting an email saying like it's gonna be 2022. How about refunding my money?
People who take half their profit off from a winning position are doing, in my opinion, the same thing as walking out on a perfectly good relationship. Are there any currency pairs that you avoid?
Semester, make sure you set your notification. I'm doing live once a week, sometimes twice a week.
One of my favorite
sometimes 3 times.
in the short term, meaning the New York session in particular, during hours that I'm actually
Oh, Marlon, you meant 2021? Let's see. Because right now, New York, they're going to shut down again. New Jersey going to shut down. So it's getting, instead of it's getting better, it's getting worse. They're going to be closing down the barbershops, salons, restaurants.
I find that it's heavily traded.
It's not looking good right now.
Support and resistance. That means it has far less likelihood to break out of a range and travel very far, or even stay within a range and travel far.
5 minutes on live. I gotta get some rest. Might be Kern. I'm gonna make a note of that.
In the longer term, the British pound US dollar is still my all-star.
What's your email? I'm gonna shoot you an email.
Pair ever. I love it the most.
Or if you wanna, you could email me. Email me at DaveJamaica8 at AOL. I'll look out. I'll research KERN for you.
We are sure many traders have never even looked at that currency pair.
Just give me some time.
In the shorter term, it's one of my favorites because if it tends to, there's very often nobody on the other side.
Okay, Marlon, I know that's the best way to do it. Cash is king.
Based on an option or large stop loss orders. I mean, when the euro-Canadian dollar starts to move,
it's appealing when you own nothing.
Momentum behind it, and therefore it is not advisable to get
away
of that in a short term.
You ain't got to worry about any mortgage payment.
It doesn't tend to trend for long periods of time very much, and isn't susceptible to the type of analysis that I do on the longer term.
Adelaide, they're closing down to give vaccine. It's the second time I'm hearing this. You're right.
If it breaks out of a recent level of support or resistance that's been intact for
Adla, you're right. I think that's exactly what they're doing.
Very quickly, like the euro-US dollar, or even the British pound US dollar to a certain extent.
Because I'm not seeing anybody getting sick around me.
Not as heavily traded. There's not as many people waiting for it to get to a certain level, and so it's sort of off the radar.
Might be. FTEK is up 33% in the after hours, so it's not done.
Talked a lot about these systems you're trading. Do you typically have your favorite system for the week that you're trading, or are there some systems that only give a few?
When you're hot, you're hot. These stocks, when they're hot, they run for days.
At one time. How do you manage that? Because there are so many different indicators out there, and there's so many different ways that people could trade, potentially creating a lot of counteracting signals. I'll only really focus on two different strategies at the same time. That is, I'll have two strategies that I'm willing to trade, and one strategy, at least, that's sort of in the laboratory being ready to replace a strategy that I'm no longer comfortable with for a variety of reasons. I might be bored with it, my schedule might not be able to accommodate that strategy any longer, or, quite frankly, it might not be profitable any longer. It might have gone outside of the statistical deviation of where it's supposed to be producing results. My short-term system on any given currency pair, like the euro-Canadian dollar, will produce anywhere between 5 and 10 trades per week that last anywhere from 15 minutes to 12 to 18 hours at the very most on the far outside of the bell curve. Then on the longer term, I'll
thank everyone for tuning in to the live today. Shout out to Marlon Newby. Might be MSI Mr. Adelaide. I'm probably mispronouncing some of them. Ryan Black in the building. No, I'm not holding NNDM. I was in and out of that a long time. I'm gonna write it down. Let me see what it's doing. Thanks for the email. I'll reply. Just give me a couple of. I'll try to reply by tomorrow.
I also experiment with new versions of the systems all the time.
And NDM. Ryan Black, I'll put that down. Please email me at DaveJamaica8 for stock research.
To open up the charts in the morning and just look around for some action than it is to say, here's the time frame I watch, here's the system I use, and that's it. That's all I am going to focus on. There could be 1,000 pips out there.
Oh, I spelled that incorrect.
Time frame chart, but I don't care about it. When I hear people say that they missed a trade on the US dollar South African rand because they weren't looking at that chart and they've got 25 current pairs on their screen and they're missing trades all the time, I always tell them that I missed out on dating Julia Roberts in college, but then...
Marlon, no problem. You're welcome anytime. Adley, thanks for tuning in. Iron Black, shoot me an email regarding NNDM.
We still get involved in it because we want to have a piece of the action.
Herg the Great, thanks for tuning in. Goddamn Damien, thanks for tuning in.
Instead of reasonable analysis.
Flash Melody, thanks for your support.
You can realize where specialization and focus come into play.
Make sure you make your next trade your best trade. Always set your stop loss. Always trade responsibly. Do not trade more than you're willing to lose. Always take profits because now you see it, now you don't.
Foolishness and go along with you want your money. Subscribe to Dave Natch. Please, me I tell you, go on, good morning, please. Yeah, man, I want to do it fast and quick here. Subscribe to Dave Natch. Don't stop. Every day, you want the money go, check DAVESPLAY. Invest. Invest. Bless. Subscribe to Dave Natch for no removal. Subscribe to Dave Natch.
How you doing out there? It's your boy Douglas Anderson Jr. with the Price of Spill podcast. And as my good friend Dave Nash always say, you're not rolling right if you ain't trading right. A lot of times we like to work hard, but if you follow my boy Dave Nash, you'll know how to work smart. Boom, bow.
Gotta say it. She can get a taste. She can get a taste. What it say? It's all the same like Mary Kate. She can get a taste. Let you get a taste. Did you let it taste? Yeah, that's cool, but he ain't like me. Ready to make big money in the stock market? But how do you know what stocks to buy? That is
Sky high, up in the sky. My confidence is so high. Now for the rock star man play. I am not ashamed to aim high. I said don't be afraid to aim high. Keep your eyes up and high, you don't lose your prize and then set your goals them up high. Should never be ashamed to aim high. Set your goals them high. You need to go and talk them up. The big mouth problem to the end of everything to rust high. But my people then I love you try. They love to see you lay down and die. And all in their mind that they will do if you try and not you. You don't forget no glide. So just take your wings and fly. Like an eagle up in the sky. And tell the dirty blue light bye. Bye. I am not ashamed to aim high. I said don't be afraid to aim high. Keep your eyes up and high. You don't lose your prize and then set your goals them up high. You should never be ashamed to aim high. Set your goals them up high. So you need to go and talk the big mouth to the end of everything to rust high. I can give it to you that we a check for. I'm the one that doesn't like come out ya. Cause when I'm behind and be a champion.
Have a good night. I'll see you in the AM with DAVESPLAY. Boom.